something like that. And then a bit of celery
Okay.
is great.
Another one, I'm jumping from one to another here, but as I
I
said to
love
you the other
them.
day, literally I was like, I'm going to bite the hand off Emma and ask her every possible question. It reminded me when we were on about the sun, someone also asked me about LED lights and would you recommend LED therapy, and like how does that work with rosacea?
Yeah, I mean, LED has been shown to be helpful more so in sort of acne and anti-aging. So there isn't a
Yeah.
huge amount of data in rosacea. It does have some sort of anti-inflammatory effect. And so if there are situations where I couldn't use any other treatments, for example, pregnancy, that's sometimes when I'm sometimes like,
Okay.
oh, no, there isn't as much that we can use. And so I might go for it for there. But for me, it just doesn't do enough. And like I was saying about the celery, I mean, I can't be bothered to do things that don't really help. Frankly, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go to the time and expense and things like that. I really want to see results. And I think with LED, it might have mild anti-inflammatory, but it's not going to have enough sustainable effects. So I personally would rather go for a laser in that sort of
Yes.
context.
When do you think you reach a point where you start thinking, I'm going to go for laser? And how does that work for someone that hasn't considered
Yeah.
that as an option yet?
So I think this is such an important point, and it was something that I wanted to, I should have brought up when I was talking about medical treatment. Generally, medical treatments work really, really well for spots. As a sort of very quite medical dermatologist, i.e. somebody that doesn't do as many sort of lasers and things like that, I can treat the spots and like the dryness and flaking and all of that, no problem with rosacea. But when it comes to the flushing, that is definitely something about the way the blood vessels work. So the blood vessels sit too close to the skin. So normally your blood
Okay.
vessels should just come up when you're, I don't know, gone for a run or something like that, and then just shrink back down. And they lose that sort of elasticity, that really nice, like dynamic nature when you get rosacea, and they sit too close to the skin. And also they come up too much. And to change that really is a mechanical thing. There were some
Okay.
creams out. Some of you might have tried Movaso and some other creams, but they weren't very good. And we found they were not effective as part of the routine. So laser is really the thing. If you're flushing a lot, and if it's redness without spots, without dryness, without flakiness, that's really your big problem. Laser is going to be the thing that can help you the most.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Does that
that's, I think, one of the things as well that I find myself talking about a lot. There are all of these different types of rosacea, aren't there? So
yeah.
there isn't really one rule of thumb for one person, because it's almost a case of everyone having to identify, are you targeting flushing, dryness,
Right.
texture, and
Yeah.
then kind of working out from
Yeah.
there, isn't it?
Exactly. But I think if you can do that, for me, that's one of the most, there are lots of different ways of classifying rosacea and lots of different groups and like huge long names in dermatology. But really for me, it's like, is the sensitivity most of the problem? Are the spots most of the problem and the bumpiness? Or is it the flushing and redness? And if you can divide yourself into that sort of category, then we
Right.
know where all your changes, like if dryness and irritation are a problem, skincare will really help you. If bumps are a problem, medical treatments will help you. If flushing is a big problem, laser will help you. And I think that is a really nice, like just pragmatic way of sort of classifying things.
Brilliant. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read through a few of these, Emma, so I haven't forgotten anyone.
Please.
What can you do about rosacea flare-ups in pregnancy? That was from T-Share.
And it's a good point because some rosacea can flare up. I've had a couple of cases which have reacted really badly. As with everything, we're super, super careful during pregnancy. But sometimes I think that pregnant women are treated a bit like cotton wool, and everyone's like, no, I won't touch the pregnant woman. Go away and just suffer for 9 months for the sake of your baby. And as much as, like, of course we all do, I'm a mother, so I can say this. But, you know, actually, you don't have to be totally miserable. There are things that you can do. So first of all, take stock of your skincare routine, strip out anything harsh, go for a nice skin barrier boosting skincare regime, a French pharmacy brand or a CeraVe we talked about before, you know, one of those really gentle brands to actually try and help. Like she's got it there.
Do you know what I like about the CeraVe actually, while we're on about them?
Yeah.
Like that's 236 ml, which is quite big, and that's the moisturising lotion, but I use the hydrating cleanser of theirs as well.
Yeah, I like
I
that.
like that that's less than a tenner and it's huge and it is going to last for ages.
Right.
So, you know, I'm always quite mindful of, I know that, you know, for example, I know I've mentioned that serum which does cost the earth, but actually I genuinely find with a lot of rosacea treatments or like just products that work well for it, sometimes it's the less expensive things because they're just simple.
I think you don't have to. There is a good skincare regime out there for every budget. Like genuinely, there is. I mean, I could put together regimes at all different budgets. And I think that's so good, because actually, what we don't want is a whole load for me to sit here and go like, yeah, I've got this amazing £200 cream, and that will totally save you. Like, you don't need to do that. So I think there are lots and lots of great things that you can do about it.
Another lady, I know we were just talking about pregnancy. I'm going to try and find her name.
Oh yeah,
Somebody
sorry.
else
So
got in
pregnancy, first thing
touch.
is skincare regime.
Oh
I do
yes.
use azelaic acid during pregnancy, so that's a good thing. There are some topical antibiotics, so cream-based antibiotics I can use during pregnancy. And for really, really, occasionally I see really active rosacea, you can sometimes use certain tablets, but it's in very rare cases. But what my point was is actually there's a lot you can do. So don't think that you just have to put up and suffer.
Brilliant. And then equally, another lady has said, can rosacea be brought on by the menopause? And if so, will it stop after I've gone through the menopause?
Such a good question. So I think that the flushing of menopause and the flushing of rosacea is slightly different. However, might be, because actually as your skin gets older, and particularly around menopause, it gets much drier. And so if you've got a little bit of an underlying tendency to rosacea, the dryness that's come about with the menopause definitely could bring on a flare of rosacea. And if it is rosacea and not just like flushing of menopause, then will it go away after? No, unfortunately. That tendency will always be there, but there is so much stuff that you can do around the menopause. And again, I think menopausal women, like pregnant women, have had a bit of a rough time of it. Over the historically, they're just put up with it, but actually there's loads and loads of stuff that you can do.
Brilliant. Let me see here. Right, this is my sister, actually, to be honest with you, but she used the question box, so let's go for it.
Let's not discriminate against the sister, Rose.
You're going to get through, Maria. She actually said, which I find as well, that her redness, she doesn't have rosacea as such, but she's definitely got like a bit of redness. She said her redness becomes more apparent after she's applied fake tan.
Like immediately after, or when the fake tan's on? And
when it's kind of on and done its job.
I haven't heard that before. I mean, one thing you might think is that is the fake tan irritating a little bit, or is it the wrong tone of fake tan? So I think you have to be a bit careful about fake tans, and making sure that you're not using one that's got lots of different ingredients in it. Go for something simple. I quite like the Lancome Flash Bronzer. I quite like the Tan Luxe drops that you can put into a nice rich moisturizer. So see whether anything like that helps, because I think actually if you use the right fake tan, it shouldn't necessarily, and get the right tone, it shouldn't necessarily flare it up. And actually it's so much better than normal sun and tanning. So I'm a massive fan of fake tan.
I'm a big fake tanner.
White porcelain person today. I am a big fan.
I'm usually the colour of this blouse, but what can I say? A bit of James Reed later. Do you know what though? Funnily enough, I've just started using, I haven't got them to hand because I didn't think of them for this. There's two tanning brands I really love, James Reed and Isle of Paradise by Jules. Yes. And James has just come up with these new clicky drops that you just mix into your moisturiser. Yes. And it's nice because you can do your face and still use your whole regime, but you've got that built into it. And I like that because I don't like necessarily a facial tan moisturiser that's a really heavy formula, whereas because that's so thin in texture and I'm mixing it into this stuff anyway, I've had lovely results from that. So
I think the other thing is, if you've got quite sensitive skin, is to do just short periods of time with your fake tan on. So actually what you might do is in the afternoon, like now we're all at home the whole time, actually put it on for 2 or 3 hours and then wash it off. And you may find that you tolerate it a little bit better. So I think there are lots of ways around the fake tan, but I'm a big fan, and I think for rosacea it sort of makes sense anyway.
Okay. Now, one thing I'd love to do, Emma, just because I know we will get asked a lot of questions, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to do like name and shame of everything that you love. So like where we're talking about a cleanser or a nice moisturiser or whatever, what are some of your top recommended products that people can go and have a look at?
So I think for cleansers and moisturisers, I really like the Avène range. And I said this before, unfortunately, I don't have any at home with me at the moment.
I don't have any to hand either, but I love Avène as well. I think
really
they're really
good.
Great. Yeah.
And what I really like about Avène as well is, and La Roche-Posay does this in their ingredients, but they have these things called prebiotics. And basically, we know that our skin is covered in lots of different types of bacteria. And although that sounds awful, it's actually good, because we want a good balance of like good and bad bacteria. And what the sensitive skin brands like La Roche and Avène do is that they enable ingredients to just try and balance out like the way that the skin works, the pH, the level of skin, the bacteria within the skin. So I really like that, and I think for rosacea it's a really important point. So Avène, the Tolérance Extrême cleanser, I really like, or the Toleriane Derma cleanser by La Roche.
And what are the textures of those?
Really creamy.
Okay.
Really creamy. And this goes back to us saying before, like, if you're someone that likes that sort of squeaky clean feeling, you're going to be like, you're going to be thinking,
what's going on here?
What is she talking about? This is not a cleanser, but I promise you, it will clean your skin and it will just restore your skin barrier and really help. So I think those are my sort of top faves for that.
Okay. And then moisturizer wise, I find I mix up my textures a good bit. Yeah. So I've got a few to hand. Here's one I made earlier. So like La Roche-Posay Toleriane Sensitive Fluid, for example, is so kind of, it's like a gel almost, and you can see how easily it melts in.
Yeah.
I use that one a lot for day to day, whereas sometimes when I'm really dry, I might go even up to the likes of Cicaplast.
Yeah.
Which is so rich. Even that tiniest bit you'll be able to see is just, it really is very comforting though. And I'll find that maybe keeping it sheer for most of the week and then one night of that will help to rebalance everything. Would you recommend one particular texture over another?
I tend to go rich. I mean, unless you're really oily with rosacea, or you've got an overlap between acne and rosacea, which we do see. I just think the richer you can go, the more you can add in other actives and things. So I tend to go quite rich. I really like the Toleriane range, but I tend to go for the Riche or the Ultra in the context of rosacea. So the Toleriane, she's got it.
Got it. I love the Riche as well. That's really, funnily enough, is I suppose kind of the middle ground texture between those two, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly.
Do love that one.
And then things like the Avène Recovery Cream, that's a great one for.
Is that in the glass jar?
No, they're sort of, they come. I tell you why they're good is because they don't have any preservatives, so they come in this funny tube. It can sometimes sort of squirt out everywhere, but it doesn't contain preservatives. So the less you can have in your moisturizer, the better. Basically, if you don't have any fragrance and you don't have any sort of preservatives, there's less to irritate your skin, and that's what's quite good about some of the Avène stuff is that they don't contain any of those. So those can be really good. The Avène Recovery or the Tolérance Extrême can be really, really good, those ranges. But the Toleriane, you're not going to go wrong with Toleriane. And the great thing about Toleriane, which is the La Roche-Posay ones, it comes in 4 strengths, so you can just sort of adjust according to where you're at.
And out of interest, while we're talking about La Roche-Posay, because I talk about them a lot and a lot of people that I speak to have had great results from them. There is the Rosacea range, which says on the website that it's specifically for kind of a redness prone skin. Yeah. But actually lots of people recommend Toleriane, it seems, rather than going for that redness range. What would you say is the reason why a lot of doctors do that?
I think often because we're using medical creams, and so actually all we need from our products is to just support and complement our medical creams. And so often we just want the blandest things possible, and then we can just pick out different sort of medical ingredients. The thing that I think is really nice though with the Rosacea is their AR Intense Serum. Do you know that?
I haven't tried that, no.
So that's got an ingredient which is supposed to help with blood vessels and trying to reduce the amount of blood vessels that are coming up. So sometimes I incorporate that into my regimes as well. And I think it is a really useful one. I think those sorts of brands are great for people who are just starting out with this whole journey. Someone mentioned before that, like, I've just got diagnosed and help me accept it. And I would absolutely say things are going to be fine. You know, there's so much stuff that you can actually do. And it's, you know, okay, yes, it is a chronic condition. It's something that's going to stay with you. But honestly, there are so many different things that we can do. So don't get down about it because there's so much stuff you can do. But if you are just starting off or you've got mild changes, then I think Rosacea great for that. And like I said, I'm really interested in the AR Intense Serum, and I use that as part of my regimes. But once you're onto the whole medical gig, then we just tend to keep things as bland as we possibly can. So I think that's why doctors like the Toleriane stuff.
Right. And then actually a question that's come up a good few times is, are there any particular foundations that you'd really recommend?
Well, Rose, I mean, a little bit over to you on this one.
A little bit over to me. I may have prepared something earlier on this one. Now, So I work with It Cosmetics as their UK and Ireland brand ambassador, so I've been very clear about that. However, the reason I came to join them to do that was because I started using the CC cream when I was first kind of noticed the redness in my skin. It gives complete coverage and it looks really dewy. And what I like about it is you want your coverage, but you don't want to look like you've got absolutely loads of makeup on. So that's what I personally use and really recommend. They also have that, because that's full coverage, you look like you've got a face on. That's what I've got on now. But they also have Bye Bye Redness powder, which is really sheer. If you wanted to look like, if you're someone that doesn't maybe want to wear makeup, you just want to look like you've got an even complexion, that will buff on and you just look covered in that area without looking like you're wearing anything. And the same for the Bye Bye Redness cream. So that's what I would personally recommend to anybody. And then another thing I meant to grab, which I've done in a few videos before, which I will show you, if you are someone that wants a primer and you want something under your base, Daniel Sandler does a brilliant green primer. I don't like any green products. I always think they make you look quite gaunt and they wash everything out. I'm not a fan of them. But this is the only green product that I've tried and thought, you have absolutely nailed that. So I'll leave a link to that as well.
Fantastic.
Do you have any from like a medical perspective that you really like?
I do. So I mean, I tend to go for things that are suitable for sensitive skin. So a lot of foundations and things can be fragranced, and if you're very sensitive, you want to try and avoid those. If you want quite a lot of coverage, we as dermatologists, we use a lot of Vichy Derma Blend.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, it's got 30% extra sort of pigment in it. So if you need to cover things up, it's pretty good, and it's good for sensitive skin as well. So Vichy Derma Blend. And then I like NARS Cosmetics. They're unfragranced as well, and non-pore people who tend to have that overlap between sort of acne and rosacea. So NARS and Vichy, I think they're a great place to start as well.
Brilliant. I really like all of those as well. I think with the likes of like, for example, NARS, I remember another dermatologist said to me that she asks her clients to just try Sheer Glow and see if they feel a bit better. She was saying in particular people that were considering having maybe their first bit of Botox or their first bit of a treatment. And she said sometimes getting your foundation right can be the thing that just, you know, makes all the difference and makes you potentially look at that again.
Agreed. Like not sweating the small stuff if you can cover, you know, things up. But I think it's such a careful balance between treating the stuff that you can treat and then not sweating the stuff that actually is really quite tricky to treat. And with rosacea, there's so much of it that we can treat reasonably, you know, in a straightforward way. So definitely getting stuff sorted if you need to.
And one last kind of recommendation I know we'll have a lot of. I know we've touched on the importance of sun cream loads. Kind of for different price points and brackets, what would you say are some of your favourite sun creams?
I am super picky about sun cream. I'm quite a chilled doctor on the whole, but I have to say I'm really, really picky about sunscreen, because when we're thinking about what we want from our sunscreen, it's not enough just to pick a high SPF. So when you look at the packaging of a sunscreen, SPF stands for the amount of UVB protection. So when the sun comes down on us, there are all different types of rays. Okay, and SPF just tells us how much protection we get from like burning, and that's brilliant. None of us want to burn, right? But also there are other rays which really impact on rosacea, like UVA. So when I'm looking at sunscreen, although I want a high SPF because I 100% don't want to burn, I also want lots and lots of other protection like UVA protection. And so when I'm looking at the brands, I'm always looking at the sort of the balance of filters that they use in them. And I wouldn't ever expect consumers to do this, because I mean, I did spend like 20 years at medical school, Rose, so I mean, that has to count for something. But some brands that I really like, Anthelios, which is the La Roche-Posay one, you absolutely cannot go wrong with UVA and UVB protection. So I'm a massive fan of that. And I think at the moment on the high street, in terms of price point, I know it is not cheap by any means, but for your face, I think you can get them on offer sometimes and things. I think it's one of the things that you can get out there. Some of the other ones I tend to advise, like the SkinCeuticals ones can be great. The Clinique ones are really good. They do a pure mineral sunscreen. The Jan Marini that I showed you before, So that's great, but you are looking at higher price points for those. And I think, with sunscreen, knowing that you have to use it regularly and use quite a lot of it is important. So the Anthelios, if you have to remember one, because I'm getting a lot of vibes that actually I'm saying a lot of stuff and people are like, I can't remember, she's flying in
I'm gonna write all of this down. If anyone's watching thinking, oh, I caught half of it or anything, I'm gonna save this down and upload it as its own thing, and I'll write everything in the description so we can absolutely just have a list of things.
So Anthelios, also Heliocare, someone said there as well, which I also agree is fantastic. I really like Heliocare.
I can imagine, Emma, that there's going to be people now. I'm just actually going to turn this for 1 second. Oh, a mineral SPF for darker skin tones. Ooh. Just quickly, I know that you mentioned a new one that comes in several shades.
I literally only saw it today on Instagram. This is not even like insider info. This is literally on Instagram, and I haven't looked at it and haven't seen it, but I was excited because I've constantly said to La Roche, when is your mineral sunscreen coming out?
I know that the original Anthelios comes in 2 versions, and one of them is slightly tinted, but when it goes on, you can't see any tint, but it helps to reduce a kind of white sheen off the SPF, and that's been really popular. So that's definitely one to look at that I know I've come across.
I think the question around mineral sunscreen for darker skin tones is a really, really good question, because it is hard. Basically, when I've talked about the different types of sunscreens, chemical and mineral, the reason why we don't have so many mineral sunscreens is because they do leave more of a white sheen on you. And so what they've done with them is they've tinted them. But actually, I think the tints end up going much better on like Caucasian skin. And what happens is that people who've got darker skin, it looks a bit grey. So I think it is a bit of a challenge, if I'm honest. I'm very excited to see whether the 5 shades of La Roche one really does cover all skin types, because I think that's so important. The Clinique one is white, so actually it seems to go in a bit better, but it doesn't leave such a white cast. Aven do a white one as well, but it is a bit white cast. I think if you've got darker skin, you're not going to win with that one. You might be better off just picking a really well formulated sensitive skin chemical sunscreen, because actually the key with sunscreen is that you like it and you use it every day. If it's going to leave you like a ghost, you're not going to end up
picking it up. No, of course. Really quickly, that is a really good question I've just seen Philly put up, because I've always wondered this. Is there an order that you would recommend to do your skincare steps and then your SPF? Where would it sit?
Oh yes, I'm very definite about this, Rose.
Go on. Oh, lovely.
So obviously cleanse first.
Yeah.
Then if you're using a vitamin C serum, ideally your vitamin C serum will go on next.
Yeah.
Then if you're using any sort of active like azelaic or next, if not, you go to your moisturizer, then your sun cream, then your makeup. Sun cream is last step in your regime before your makeup.
Okay.
That's it. That's exactly how it should be done.
That's how it should be. Now, I'm going to just for a moment close that so we can see you, Emma. I feel like there's going to be people now that end up wanting to get in touch and just kind of come and see you or have a consultation or learn a bit more. Just could you give everyone an overview of where you are, how we can find you, how we can get in touch?
Yeah, so I work in Harley Street, and I work with another dermatologist called Sam Bunting, and I'm on her website. And you can either DM me through Instagram, and then we can give you all the sort of details. And we are still doing sort of virtual consultations. But I think I'm also really, really aware that as much as I love seeing people and we can make such a difference, but, private medicine is not something that we can, everyone can afford. And that there is so much stuff that you can do out there. And there's a lot of great resources out there as well. So I think these sorts of things actually really raise awareness. And there's so much stuff you can do before you even need to come anywhere near a dermatologist.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's given people some ideas about sort of where to start. And you and I can definitely go through the things to give a bit more of a succinct list of the sort of products and stuff that I find really helpful.
Oh, brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much, Emma. I've been so looking forward to this. And if I just show you, I was inundated, and that's only one page. And bear in mind, that's been in less than 24 hours. The minute I said you were coming, it was just so many questions. But to be honest, I think this is the great thing, and this is why I was so excited to have you, is I'm very aware that, for example, from my perspective, I will share what works for me and what I'm using for my redness. But I was only diagnosed last year and I'm still figuring out what's going on for me. And actually, it's very different taking a peer recommendation to speaking to an actual doctor.
Yeah.
And it's just brilliant to have had you to, as I say, bite the hand off and pick the brains off.
It's so nice to see you.
I know, even if it is through the screen.
I know, but it's really lovely to see you. So thank you so much for having me, because
It's been
pleasure.
brilliant. Right, I think it's 1 o'clock for both of us, if our earlier calculations were correct.
Take care, my love.
Take care. Thanks so much, Emma. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.